The man who talked to time. Close your eyes. Imagine an open, silent field where the wind blows slowly, as if whispering secrets from a distant past. The sky is painted with soft shades of gold and lavender. It's late afternoon, one of those late afternoons that seem to last longer than normal, as if time had decided to sit down too, rest a little, breathe. In the center of this field, isolated from the world, there is an old cabin. It is not large nor beautiful, but there is something eternal about it. The wood already bears the tone of earth and time. The windows do not creak, they just watch. And on the front porch, in a rocking chair that creaks gently, rests a man. He has his eyes closed. His face is calm, marked not by wrinkles of age, but by lines of contemplation. His hair, neither white nor black, seems made of cloud ash. He breathes deeply, as if each breath were a sacred gesture. Every morning, he wakes before the sun. Every night he sleeps before the moon. And in between these two moments, he talks, but not with other men, not with gods, not with ghosts or animals. He talks to time. Yes, he speaks to time as if it were an old friend, as if he were meeting someone he already knows deeply. And time, in some mysterious way, responds, sometimes with a colder wind, other times with a warmer breeze. Some answers come in the form of a forgotten memory, a smell that appears out of nowhere, or a melody played by no instrument at all. But man understands. He always understands. Once, while watching the leaves falling from a lonely tree, he said, "Are you sad today, old friend?" And a gray cloud covered the sun for a few minutes, as if confirming the question. Another time, on a day when the sky was clear, he whispered, "I see you are in a hurry. Where are you rushing to?" And then the wind blew hard, knocking down leaves and scattering dust. Time passed more quickly that day. Or maybe it was just his impression. But the truth is that, for those who are used to listening to time, these small variations say a lot. Every second has an intention. Every minute has a story. The man, however, did not try to control him. He made no demands nor asked for favors. He just talked. He was perhaps the only being in the world who had stopped running, not out of tiredness, but by choice. He wanted to listen. He wanted to understand. And as he did so, time, that busy gentleman, so merciless with all of us, stopped for a while. It stopped just to talk to him. And this is where our story begins. Because on this particular afternoon, the one you are imagining now, with the golden sky, with the comfortable silence all around, time came to speak, not as a breeze, not as heat, not as a memory, but as presence. That afternoon, everything was quieter than usual. Even the birds seemed to have suspended their songs, as if they too knew that something was about to happen. The man slowly opened his eyes. The air felt denser, as if time around him was hesitating. He stood up. The chair stopped rocking, and for the first time in years, he walked down the 3 porch steps. He walked out into the field, where the wind blew in gentle circles, almost forming invisible spirals. There was something different in the air, an ancient anticipation. "You really came," said the man, as if speaking to someone who was centuries late, but was still welcome. In front of him nothing visible appeared, but he knew. Time was there, present in form, in soul, in presence. It was like looking into the void and, at the same time, seeing everything. Like looking into a mirror that does not reflect your face, but your years, your mistakes, your silences, your memories. Time presented itself not as a being, but as a complete feeling. And then he spoke, not with a voice, but with something deeper, a vibration that spread through the man's bones, as if every cell were listening. "You have listened to me all your life," said Time, without opening his mouth. "Because Time has no mouth. You respected me, while others feared me, tried to control me, or pretended I didn't exist. You welcomed me, and I came, because there is something that needs to be said." The man closed his eyes. A shiver ran down his spine, but it wasn't fear. It was acceptance. "I know," he replied. "My time is running out, isn't it?" The field stood completely still. Not a leaf moved, and Time, as if confirming without haste, made a single flower bloom at the foot of the man, a white flower, fragile, delicate, a life that was born even when another was about to end. The man smiled. "I'm not sad," he said. "I just wanted to understand one more thing before I go." Time was silent, the kind of silence that listens. Why does everything seem to go by so quickly? Why, even though we're living, do we feel like we're not living enough? The breeze touched the man's face again, soft, almost like a caress, and Time answered, "Because humans try to measure me, and I am not a number. I am not a clock. I am presence. I am an instant. I am the now. You live too much in yesterday, or wait too much for tomorrow, and before you know it, now is gone." The man took a deep breath. He thought about his childhood, the days he spent lying on the grass, looking at the clouds. He thought about his first love, his last goodbye, all the words he had said, all the ones he never had the courage to say. All of this now danced inside him, like soft shadows, like echoes of what had been experienced. "So the secret is to be present?" "Yes," Time replied, "but it is not easy. It takes courage to live in the now, to accept that it is all there is." The man sat down on the grass. He no longer cared about the chair, nor the clock hanging on the wall of the cabin. He no longer needed measurements. He was there, completely. And as the sun set, he closed his eyes again, but this time, not to sleep, but to remember. He remembered an unhurried childhood, sincere love, a mother's hug. He remembered nights looking at the stars, rainy days, barefoot steps on the wet earth. He remembered life, and Time sitting beside him also remembered, because every moment he lived was a moment that Time had saved, with affection, with respect, like someone who saves pages from a book they have read many times. Night came slowly. The stars lit up like little smiles in the sky, and the man, with his body light almost floating, whispered, "Thank you for listening to me all these years." And Time responded as only it knows how to do, with silence, with peace, with the eternity of a moment well lived. The man remained there, sitting, with his hands resting on his knees, as if he no longer expected anything, and precisely for that reason, he was ready for anything. The breeze continued to caress her face, but now there was something different about it, a light fragrance, something between lavender and old paper, a scent that only memories exude. And then he heard. It wasn't a voice, it was almost a song, a whisper coming from the leaves, as if each leaf were a living page from his past. Do you remember the day you cried in silence, watching the sunset alone? Asked Time. The man nodded. Yes, I thought the world had forgotten me. But I was there, said Time. I always was. The man smiled with one corner of his mouth. I remembered that afternoon. The red sky, the blurry eyes, and the feeling of being too small to make any difference. But now, with Time at his side, he understood that even the quietest days are recorded. Nothing is wasted when truly lived. And the dreams I didn't realize, he asked, as if he were looking at his own baggage. Time took a long time to respond, not for lack of response, but out of respect. They are also part of you, he said finally. Every dream you didn't live shaped you, made you deeper, more human. What matters is not having lived them all, but having felt each one. The man closed his eyes. He remembered when he wanted to be a musician, when he almost left for another country, the loves that never happened, the books he never wrote. Sometimes I think about what could have been, he confessed, and Time, with infinite patience, replied, You were. Even in what didn't happen, you were. Because every choice is a seed, and even the seeds that don't sprout fertilize the soul. The man felt his eyes well up, but wasn't sadness. It was something else, something softer, a kind of relief. So, I didn't fail. You have lived, replied Time, and that is all that can be done with dignity. The field around him seemed to expand, not in size, but in depth. The wind, once just a breeze, now seemed to carry stories. The porch chair was far away. The cabin was no longer visible, but he was not afraid. There, Time showed him one by one the forgotten moments. His son's first smile, the sudden laughter on an ordinary afternoon, the sound of rain on a winter Sunday, loneliness not as punishment, but as a space to rediscover yourself. And then came the images that hurt, the friend you fought with and never spoke to again, the visit you postponed, the word you didn't have the courage to say. I regret it, he whispered. Time, serene, replied, That is living. Regret is the scar of conscience, but every scar shows that you felt, that you loved, that you cared. What if I had more time? Asked the man, his voice trembling for the first time. You would have made other choices, and you would have regretted other things. Time is not what you lack. It is what you do with what you have. The man wiped away a tear. For the first time, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. I always thought time was cruel, he said. I'm not cruel. I am fair. I am everything you have decided not to postpone. The night wore on slowly, but there was no rush anymore. The man's heart beat in rhythm with the stars. For the first time, he felt exactly where he needed to be. If I could go back, he said, without finishing the sentence. But Time understood. You can. Whenever you close your eyes with love, you come back. Memory is the most faithful road there is. The man then asked one last question. What happens when I leave? Time smiled invisibly. You won't go. You will just change shape. Everything you were will continue to exist in others, in gestures, in words, in memories, and I will continue to tell your story. Silence, the kind of silence that speaks louder than 1,000 voices. And then, with a final whisper, the man lay back on the soft earth. The field seemed to envelop him like an embrace, and time, now a part of him, lay with him. The world did not stop. Time did not stop. But for one moment, eternal in its beauty, everything was complete. Time no longer seemed to flow, but rather to rest. Each second was like a warm breeze caressing the skin, as if the universe itself were breathing in peace. The man was lying down now, not in a bed of death, but in a lap of peace. Around him, there was nothing, and yet everything was present. The stars above shone with the soft intensity of a sleeping child's eyes. Time was still there, no longer a separate presence but a constant companion, invisible but palpable, like the sound of a river in the distance or the scent of unseen flowers. "I can show you more," Time whispered. "If you wish." The man nodded silently, and then he saw a forgotten beach, a place that only existed in childhood. The sky tinged with orange, little feet running over the warm sand, the sound of laughter, the smell of the sea, his mother calling him, his father building sandcastles beside him. It was so vivid, so real, the heart became still, the mind became calm. "You never lost any of it," said Time. "You just stored it so deep that you forgot where it was." And so, one by one, the memories returned. The bicycle that learned to ride, the first book he read in its entirety, the look of the teacher who believed in him, the first time he felt true love, the silence after a hug. Each scene was like a raindrop falling on a calm lake. None of them were loud. All of them had weight. Each memory was healing. Each emotion was soothing. "We all have a chest inside us," said Time. "A place where we keep everything that really matters. Even what we forget is never lost." The man breathed more deeply now. His chest no longer felt tight. His shoulders, so accustomed to the weight of the world, finally felt at rest. A faint music, perhaps only imagined, began to emerge. Something between soft strings and the sound of wind in a distant forest. Sounds that don't demand attention, but offer comfort. "Do you still feel pain?" asked Time. The man took a while to respond. "Not the same as before. Now it feels old, like a letter written a long time ago. It's still mine, but it doesn't hurt me anymore." Time nodded. "This is how pain transforms. It matures inside you. It stops screaming and starts teaching." And then came the garden. Without warning, the man found himself in the middle of a flower field. Thousands of different flowers, each with a different color, texture, and essence. And among them, some were wilted, others were still in bud. "This garden," said the man. "It's you," Time replied. "Each flower represents a choice, a memory, a phase. And look, even dried flowers have beauty. They are proof that you tried, lived, felt." The man knelt before a wilted flower. He touched it gently. It dissolved into golden petals and rose into the sky. "Not everything needs to last forever," said Time. The man smiled, a calm smile of someone who, for the first time, was at peace with everything that was, everything that is, and even with what will never be. I want to sleep, he said softly. Then, sleep, Time whispered, and when I wake, I will know that you have heard me. The breeze blew, lulled by the sound of the trees. The sky slowly darkened like a veil covering the eyes of the world, and the man, lying among the flowers, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let himself be carried away. But the story doesn't end there. Now it is the body that sleeps, but the soul continues walking. In the next section, we will be able to visit a mountain of wisdom, where the man talks to younger versions of himself, the mirror of time, where he sees not only what he was, but everything he inspired in others. A symbolic conversation with the hope, a loneliness and the love, like ethereal characters. Sleep came, but not as an end, but as a crossing. In the vastness of the dream, the man awoke in another place. Light mist covered the ground like a veil. All was silent except for the steady sound of his own breathing. Each inhalation was a song, each exhalation a relief. Ahead of him, a mountain appeared, huge, silent, shrouded in clouds. At the top, a golden light flashed, rhythmic like a heart. A mountain of wisdom, said Time, now a voice within himself. And then he started to climb. Each step was light, but full of memories. With each stone overcome, a memory emerged, not the most intense or painful ones, but the small ones, the ones almost forgotten. The day he fell silent, just to listen to the wind. A stranger's smile in a difficult moment, the laughter of a child in the street. Halfway up, he found someone sitting in the shade of a twisted tree, a boy with bright, restless eyes. "You are me," the man said, recognizing his own childhood. The boy smiled. "You've grown up, but you've forgotten how light you were." The man sat down next to the boy. The silence between them was more eloquent than 1,000 words. "I'm still here," the boy said. "I've always been here. It's just that you left me behind when you started running." The man didn't answer, but something inside him loosened, like a loose rope holding his chest together. "Take me with you," said the boy. "I don't weigh as much as you think." And so he continued, now with his inner child by his side, climbing more confidently. Each step seemed less arduous. The breeze blew lightly, as if the mountain was breathing with him. At the top, he found a small house, simple, made of light wood and with large windows. Inside, mirrors, but not ordinary mirrors. Each one reflected a different version of himself. The man who never gave up, the man who was rejected, the one who loved intensely, he who made a mistake and did not forgive himself. And the last mirror didn't show anything. The man approached. "What is this?" he asked. "This is the mirror of now," replied Time. "It does not show an image. It shows presence." The man touched the glass. He closed his eyes and listened to his own heart, beating calmly. No rush, no fear. He stood there for long minutes, or maybe seconds. Time didn't matter, because finally he was whole. Not in the past, not in the future, but right here. When he left the house, he found 3 figures sitting in a field of golden clouds. They were human in shape, but their faces were vague, and they were enveloped in soft light. The first one spoke with the voice of a hug. "I am the hope," I was with you when you didn't even believe in yourself. When everything seemed lost, I whispered, there is still one more step. The second, cold but not cruel, bowed elegantly. I am the loneliness. You feared me, but I was the one who made you hear what the world didn't say. I was the silence that showed you who you were without an audience. The third, more ethereal, with a reddish glow on her chest, just smiled. And I am the love. Not only what you gave, but also what you withheld, what you avoided, what you desired. I am all the loves that passed through you and still live in you, the man cried, not from pain, but of recognition. Hope touched him. You don't have to run anymore. Loneliness bowed, but you don't need to run away from yourself either. Love has come near. Now rest. And for the first time, man slept inside the dream, and even dreaming, he continued to exist. Time, watching from afar, smiled. Sometimes the greatest answers come when we no longer ask questions. Night stretched across the universe like a starry blanket. The world outside continued to spin, but inside the man, everything was perfectly still. Now he no longer sought to control time. He walked with it, like old friends, like brothers, as one. Upon awakening from the dream within the dream, the man felt a strange calm, a stillness that filled every corner of his being. In front of him, an ancient structure was drawn, made of white stone, almost translucent, illuminated by a soft, diffuse light. It was the temple of unspoken words. He approached slowly, listening to the distant sound of whispered voices, as if forgotten stories were trying to break free. Inside the temple, walls full of inscriptions, words he never had the courage to say, feelings kept in silence, thoughts locked in invisible safes. Each inscription pulsed with a calm energy, inviting you to touch. When the man placed his hands on a wall, he felt a gentle vibration, an invitation to release what had become trapped. The words flowed from her mouth, not out loud, but in the silence of her mind, revealing fears, ungranted forgiveness, undeclared love. And with each word released, the temple seemed to grow, to expand, as if its very soul was finding room to breathe. The man realized that carrying the weight of what was left unsaid was like trying to run with rocks in your pockets. But as each word was released, the walk became lighter. He walked to the center of the temple, where a different mirror waited. It reflected not his face, but scenes, moments when he had been silent, when he should have spoken, when he had chosen silence over truth. As he looked, he felt not guilt, but compassion. With a deep sigh, he understood that silence also has its place. Not every word needs to be said. Not every truth needs to be confronted. Sometimes silence is a refuge, a bridge. And as he accepted this, a gentle breeze began to circulate through the temple, bringing a freshness that enveloped him like an embrace. When the man left, the image of the temple was left behind, but the feeling of lightness remained. And then the horizon changed. He saw a river, calm, almost still, reflecting the pastel-colored sky. It was the river of repetition. As he walked along the bank, the man noticed that the river ran in circles, always returning to the same place. But in the reflection of the water, he saw his own repeated attitudes, emotional patterns, automatic reactions, choices made on autopilot. Why am I still here? He asked himself. Time answered gently, because learning requires patience. There is no rush to change the flow. The river teaches that it is in repetition that mastery is found. The man sat on the edge, letting his fingers touch the cool water. With each touch, a memory emerged, an argument he replayed in his mind, an old pain he revisited over and over, a regret he tried to erase. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I accept that I am human, he murmured. With flaws, with mistakes, with learning that I still need to do. The river responded with a calm sound, almost a song. It was as if nature was saying, okay, keep going. Time is not the enemy. Beyond the river, the landscape changed to a vast desert, where golden sand shone under a warm sun. This was the desert of acceptance. At first, the man felt alone, lost, but he soon understood that the desert was not a place of abandonment, but of encounter. There, everything he denied, avoided, and rejected was exposed. Accept me, whispered the desert. Do not fear me. He walked slowly, feeling the heat of the sand and the weight of his own resistance, dissolving in the wind. Each step was an act of surrender. The desert, with its silent immensity, taught that accepting is not weakness, but strength, that embracing the shadows within is the path to freedom. Finally, he arrived at the garden of departure. Soft flowers, delicate aromas, and infinite peace. There, he understood that every cycle must end for a new one to begin. That letting go is not forgetting, but honoring what was. Sitting on a bench, he felt he was ready to leave, not from a place, but from old habits, fears, doubts. The garden was not an end, but a beginning. And as he looked up at the starry sky, he smiled, because the journey didn't end there. She continued in each new dawn, in each choice made with presence, in each moment lived to the fullest. Sitting in the garden of departure, the man closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Each inhale brought peace. Each exhale carried away a small shadow of uneasiness. Around him, the flowers danced gently in the wind, as if nature itself was breathing along with it. Suddenly, a subtle voice, almost a whisper, began to echo in the air. Not a human voice, but the voice of time itself, weaving ancient stories, invisible teachings. You are part of the vastness, a drop in the ocean of existence, but each drop has its light, its path, a path that reveals itself in the dance of the now, in the silence of being. The man opened his eyes and saw that the sky had become a vast mural of constellations, each star pulsing with a soft color, inviting him to look beyond the visible. He felt a growing desire to connect, to understand not only time, but what lies beyond it. Then, the scene changed to an infinite library, with bookshelves that were lost in the soft darkness, lit only by floating candles. It was that library of the possible. Each book there represented a life, a choice, a possibility. The man walked between the shelves, touching covers reverently. When he opened a book, he saw his own life, but with infinite variations, where he chose different paths, loved in different ways, forgave or not. Within every choice, a universe. Within every silence, an unspoken word. And it is in the acceptance of infinities that true freedom is found. He closed the book, feeling the weight and lightness of each possibility coexisting within it. Further ahead, a floating bridge appeared, connecting the library to an island of light. It was a bridge of now. Each step across the bridge reverberated a calm, musical note, filling the air with harmony. The man realized that the bridge did not lead to a place, but invited him to be present. The now is the only truth. The past and the future are reflections in a serene lake. Immerse yourself in the clarity of the present, where life happens, where being flourishes. He walked slowly, feeling the ground firm beneath his feet, his breathing calm, his mind at ease. And at the end of the bridge, a door opened, not a physical door, but a portal to one's essence. Within this space, the man found a warm and welcoming light. There, he understood that the true conversation with time is a dialogue with oneself, a deep acceptance of the journey, with its pains and joys. He felt he didn't need to control or understand everything. It was enough to live with courage, love, and presence. And so, the man smiled for the first time without haste. He knew that despite the doubts, uncertainty, and fear, the journey was worth it, because in every moment, even in the silence, he was alive. The man remained in that space of light, feeling the warmth that came from within, not from the sun, but from his own essence. It was a gentle warmth, like that of a lit fireplace on a cold night, which invited comfort and calm. He closed his eyes once more, and the world around him slowly transformed. Now he walked through a silent forest, where every leaf, every branch, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The light filtered through in golden hues, tinging the path with an almost ethereal glow. The ground beneath their feet was soft, covered in a layer of green moss, and the air carried the fresh scent of wet earth. The forest was ancient, a place where time seemed to slow down, where each second stretched out, inviting him to slow down too. As he walked, he heard a whisper coming from the trees, a subtle, almost forgotten melody that spoke of patience, of cycles, of rebirth. In the forest of time, we learn that everything has its rhythm. Not everything needs to be rushed. Nature teaches us to wait, to trust in the slow unfolding of things. He sat down against a tree, leaning his back against the cold trunk, and felt his breathing find a natural rhythm, almost as if he became part of the whole. He closed his eyes and visualized the roots of the tree extending deep into the earth, seeking water, seeking sustenance. Like a tree, your roots go deep into life. Even when you don't see it, there is growth. Even in apparent stillness, transformation happens. The man took a deep breath, feeling this connection between him and the earth, between him and time. And he realized that time, although it seemed like something outside of himself, was a living part of himself, a force that flowed within, not just around. The forest gradually disappeared, and he now found himself on a vast plain under a starry sky. The silence was absolute, but not heavy. It was a silence that welcomed, that calmed the restless mind. There, in the middle of the plain, a smooth stone shone with a light of its own, reflecting the stars above. The man came over and sat on her. In the immensity of silence, we find the truth that cannot be expressed in words. Time stops, the mind becomes still, and the heart speaks its own language. As he stood there, a feeling of deep peace began to invade his being. as if every cell in him was synchronized with the pulse of the universe. He felt that for a moment, the past, present, and future became one. It was the moment where being transcended time. Suddenly, the scene changed. He was now standing before a calm, immense mirror of water that reflected his own face, not as he was, but as he felt he was inside. In the reflection, I saw not just the man, but all his versions, the child, the youth, the mature man, all coexisting in harmony. Soft and contemplative voice. You are all your versions. Every step, every mistake, every victory forms the unique mosaic that is you. As he stared into the mirror, he realized that forgiving himself was not about forgetting, but about accepting. Accept that life is made of ups and downs, light and shadow, and that loving yourself is an act of courage and kindness. The water in the mirror began to ripple, and the man found himself being taken into it, as if he were diving into his own soul. There, colors danced in fluid shapes, creating images of hope, dreams, and possibilities. He saw people he loved, moments that had left their mark on him, and he also saw the future, not as a fixed line, but as a blank canvas, ready to be painted. The future is not written. It is an open invitation. Every choice we make is a brushstroke on the canvas of our existence. The man felt that this vision filled him with a new serenity, a desire to live with more awareness, with more presence, because time was not an enemy nor a prison. It was the space where life happened, where he could be, simply be. And so he emerged from the water, bringing with him this new wisdom. As he walked back to where it all began, he felt like a part of him would never be the same again. A man who talked to the weather, yes, but now, a man who listened to him, who embraced him, and who found peace in the eternal dance between past, present, and future. And in the silence of time, he finally spoke, not to find answers, but to be. After his encounter with the water mirror and his dive into the colors of the soul, the man slowly got up, feeling each muscle awaken gently. The path before him now seemed open, illuminated by a light that came not from the sun, but from within himself. A calm, steady light that guided him unhurriedly. As he walked, the wind blew lightly, carrying with it the sense of flowers that he could not name, but which awakened dormant memories. At that moment, he realized that life was not just about big events, but also about small details. The rustling of leaves, the gentle touch of the breeze, the warmth of the sun on his skin. Each moment carried within itself an entire world. If he only allowed himself to perceive it, life happens in the present, in this very moment. The past is a story told, the future an uncertain promise. The present, however, is the only place where existence reveals itself in all its fullness. He sat down again, this time under an open sky, looking into the distance. And there, in that boundless space, he began to hear silence, not an empty silence, but a silence full of meaning. It was the silence that arises when the mind becomes still, when the heart slows down and worries dissolve. And in that silence, he felt a question arise, a simple but profound question. What is time to you? This question did not need an immediate answer. On the contrary, it was an invitation to explore, to feel, to contemplate. And so he let his mind wander, exploring the myriad forms time could take. The images appeared in his mind like a slow-motion movie. He saw time as a calm river winding through the landscape of life, sometimes gentle, sometimes turbulent, but always flowing, always carrying. He felt the cool water running through his fingers, as if he could touch the moment without fear of losing it. Then he visualized time as a great tree whose branches stretched toward the sky and whose roots sank deep into the earth of the past. Each leaf was a moment lived, each flower a dream, each fruit an achievement. Time is a web where our experiences intertwine, creating the unique tapestry of our existence. The man smiled at this image, feeling a deep gratitude for the complexity and beauty of life. He then realized that, as invisible as time seemed, it left its mark, not just on the things around him, but inside him. Marks of learning, of love, of loss. Marks that, instead of being a burden, could become strengths, because each experience was a fundamental piece in the puzzle of being. Every scar is a story. Every story is a step on the journey, and the journey is where we find meaning. As he pondered, a gentle breeze carried the distant sound of music, slow, deep notes that seemed to tell secrets of the universe. He allowed himself to be carried away by this melody, feeling his body relax even more. The scenery changed again. Now he lay on a bed of clouds, feeling the softness beneath his body, the deep blue sky above, and a warm yet gentle sun warming his skin. He looked at the horizon, where the clouds danced slowly, forming figures that told ancient stories. In that ethereal place, time seemed to expand infinitely, as if he could stay there forever, absorbing the peace of the moment. When we allow time to expand, we give ourselves the chance to take a deep breath, to connect with what really matters. And it was in this state of stillness that he understood. Time did not need to be feared nor controlled. It could be lived, felt, and even loved. As the man rested on that bed of clouds, he felt his body merge with the sky, as if his existence became part of infinity itself. There was no rush, no urgency, just the quiet, welcoming vastness of now. His mind, which had previously sought quick answers, now sailed calmly between thoughts, memories, and sensations. He felt his heart beat in a slow, rhythmic rhythm, synchronized with the pulse of the universe. And there, in the silence of his being, a simple and powerful certainty blossomed. Time is the eternal present, and we are its passengers. Slowly, the scene changed. He found himself walking through an ancient forest, where tall trees touched the sky, and filtered light created golden patches on the mossy ground. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of leaves and wet earth. With every step he took, he felt a deep connection with the world around him, as if nature were whispering ancient secrets, told only to those who know how to listen. He realized that just like trees, time had cycles of growth, of pause, of renewal, and that, just like the forest, his life also went through these seasons, sometimes full of life, other times silent, always in transformation. He stopped next to a fallen trunk and sat down, letting his mind open to questions without rushing to find answers. Just as the forest lives in cycles, our time is also made up of phases. Accepting these phases is allowing yourself to live fully, with serenity and compassion for yourself. He felt the wind caress his face, and a feeling of deep peace enveloped him. There, in that moment, he understood that time was not a straight line, but a dance made of slow steps, gentle turns, and moments of silence. The man continued his journey now at the edge of a calm lake, where the surface of the water was like a perfect mirror. He looked at his reflection and saw not only his face, but an entire universe within his eyes. It was as if the lake held all the possibilities, all the memories, all the stories he had ever lived and would yet live. The reflection in the lake reminds us that we are made of past and future, but we inhabit only the present. With that image engraved in his mind, he lay down on the shore of the lake, feeling the cool grass beneath his body and the gentle warmth of the sun. Time seemed to slow down even more, each breath an invitation to peace. As he watched the sky turn orange with the sunset, he felt a deep gratitude for everything that time had brought him, for every moment of joy, and also for the difficulties that shaped it, for every meeting and farewell, which taught the value of presence, and finally understanding that time is not an enemy, but an ally, a silent companion that invites us to live fully. May we learn to love time, not for how long it lasts, but for how it changes us. After the sun set, the sky was filled with stars that shone like small beacons in the vast black ocean of night. The man lay on the edge of the lake, looking at that silent and eternal spectacle. Each star seemed to tell a story, each point of light a memory of immemorial times. He felt tiny, and at the same time part of something immense and grand. The feeling of connection filled his being with a deep calm. Time at that moment was not a force to be feared, but a gentle melody that lulled the soul. He could almost hear this silent music, a symphony that spanned the ages, enveloping everything in its perpetual dance. It was as if each second were a note, each minute a chord, composing the song of life that never ceased. He got up slowly, feeling the coolness of the grass under his feet, and followed a narrow path that wound between the trees. The air was filled with the sweet scent of night flowers, and the light breeze seemed to caress her skin gently. He realized that each step was a surrender to the present moment, a practice of being there, truly, with his whole being. As he walked, his mind calmed down, letting go of the worries and anxieties that used to torment him. He understood that time was neither an enemy nor an ally, but simply that which allowed existence, a space where anything could happen, where he could grow, learn, love, and transform. The path led him to an open field where the full moon illuminated everything with its soft, silvery light. There he sat, looking at the sky and the silent vastness. He thought about the immensity of the universe and the fragility of human life in the face of such a spectacle. Even so, he felt privileged to be able to contemplate all that, to be alive at that moment. He realized that time, like the universe, was a profound mystery that he might never fully understand. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the experience, the feeling of being alive, breathing, feeling, existing. It was in that simple fact that he found meaning and beauty. Time was not a straight line, but a circular journey, an endless cycle of being born, growing, transforming, and being reborn. He understood that his own story was part of this cycle, that each moment, each choice, each emotion was a fundamental piece in the mosaic of existence. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of his heart and his breathing. Everything was in perfect harmony. He was at peace with himself and with time, and this peace, he knew, was the greatest gift he could receive. With a serene smile, he stood up and continued on his way, ready to live every second with attention, gratitude, and love. He walked across the moonlit field, each step seeming in tune with the breathing of the earth beneath his feet. He felt the texture of the wet grass, the freshness of the dew, and the softness of the night air that touched his skin like an ancient caress. In the distance sound of a stream added a natural soundtrack to the serene walk. As he walked, his mind drifted into memories. He recalled moments of his life that had previously seemed like scattered fragments, but now made sense within the larger context of time. Each experience, each encounter, each farewell were threads woven into the complex tapestry of his existence. He realized that the anxiety that had previously tormented him had lost its strength. The serenity of that moment was a balm that softened the invisible scars on his soul. He now understood that time did not run against him, but flowed with him at its own natural rhythm. In the silence of the night, he heard the sound of leaves moving in the wind. It was as if nature itself was breathing, pulsating, alive and aware. He stopped to feel that subtle vibration, an energy that seemed to permeate everything, connecting the sky, the earth, and his own essence. The thought that everything is temporary brought a sense of liberation. Worries, fears, desires, anxieties, they were all temporary, like clouds passing through the sky, leaving the clear, serene blue behind. Accepting this impermanence was like letting go of a heavy burden he didn't even know he was carrying. Suddenly, a shooting star streaked across the sky, a bright streak that quickly disappeared but left a trail of light in the man's mind. He smiled, thinking about the ephemeral beauty of that phenomenon, so simple and yet so grand. Following the path, he found a majestic tree whose branches spread out like arms that welcomed the world. He sat down in its shade, leaning his back against the solid trunk, and closed his eyes. The heart beat at a calm pace. The breathing was deep and regular. There, in that moment, he allowed himself to simply be. No rush, no judgment, no past or future, just the present, pure and crystal clear. Time ceased to be something to control and began to be felt as a continuous flow of possibilities. He felt part of a great cycle of life, death, and rebirth, where each moment was an opportunity for learning and renewal. As the wind blew gently through the leaves, the man felt a deep peace, a connection that transcends rational understanding, an invisible bond that linked him to everything in existence. And so, in that silence full of meaning, he understood the essence of time, not a prison, but an invitation to live with fullness, serenity, and love. The man sat beneath the tree, feeling the rough texture of the trunk against his back, a contact that connected him to the earth, to the life pulsing silently around him. The branches above danced slowly in the wind, casting soft shadows that played on the leaf-covered ground. At that moment, his mind wandered through the labyrinths of time, imagining the stories that tree could tell if it had a voice. Stories of seasons that follow one another, of people who passed through and left their invisible marks, of moments that are both ephemeral and eternal at the same time. The feeling was that time is not something linear, a straight line that takes us from the past to the future, but rather a spiral, a continuous circle that always returns to the starting point, only at a different, deeper, more conscious frequency. He thought about his childhood, the carefree days, the purity of that way of looking at the world, where everything was new and enchanting. How could he possibly recover that lightness, that ability to marvel without rushing? Perhaps, he reflected, the answer lay in accepting the present with the same innocence, embracing the present moment as a rare gift. Meanwhile, the night deepened, and the starry sky became even more vast and mysterious. He felt the passing of time, not as something to be feared, but as a calm melody that lulled existence. It was as if each star was a note of this cosmic song, resonating within him. Soft memories surfaced, dear faces, kind words, distant laughter that seemed to echo from another time. He smiled at these fragments of life, allowing the emotions to flow without resistance, like a river following its natural course. The distant sound of an owl broke the silence, an ancient call, an invitation to contemplation. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath of the pure night air, and felt a silent gratitude for being there, for being able to live this experience. In this state of serenity, he realized that time does not erase, but transforms, does not destroy, but renews, does not separate, but unites. He was part of a greater whole, a luminous fragment in the vastness of the universe. His mind calm, his heart light. He felt ready to move forward, to continue his journey without fear, with trust in the natural flow of life. He stood up slowly, stretching his body under the silvery moonlight. Every movement was a celebration of existence, a silent dance with the time and space. He knew the road ahead was long, full of challenges and discoveries, but also of beauty and meaning. With calm steps, he resumed his walk through the open field, feeling the soft grass beneath his feet, the sweet scent of the night flowers, the light breeze that blew through the trees. Everything seemed to conspire to make him feel at peace, in harmony with the world and with himself. As he walked, his thoughts turned to what really matters: love, presence, mindfulness. He understood that despite the uncertainties of the future and the scars of the past, there was a fixed point in his being, an inner light that could never be extinguished. And so, steeped in this silent certainty, he moved forward, letting time flow like a calm river, open to the surprises and miracles that each new moment could bring. As the night wore on, the breeze changed in intensity, now cooler, bringing a light scent of wet earth and fresh leaves. He took deep breaths, feeling the air coming in and out, like an invitation to connect deeply with the present moment. Each breath was a silent embrace that connected him to the pulsating life around him. On the horizon, the thin line between darkness and dawn began to take shape, a soft glow that announced the arrival of a new day. The slow, imperceptible transition between night and day seemed like a perfect metaphor for existence itself. Cycles of endings and beginnings, losses and gains, moments of silence and bursts of light. He stopped for a moment and looked up at the sky, where the stars were slowly giving way to the light of the rising sun. In that moment, he felt a deep peace, as if the entire universe was whispering to him that everything was right, that every step even the uncertain ones, was part of a greater and mysterious plan. He then thought about all the people who had crossed his path, those who stayed, those who left soft marks, and others that were deeper. Life, he realized, is made up of these encounters and disagreements, these ephemeral connections that, even so, shape who we are. He smiled at the idea that we are all time travelers, carrying within us fragments of the past and dreams of the future, but always living in this fleeting and precious moment. With a peaceful sigh, he resumed his walk, feeling the first warm rays of the sun touching his skin. The world was slowly waking up. The birds sang a natural symphony, and the dew sparkled like tiny diamonds on the leaves and flowers. He realized the time, although invisible and intangible, was felt in every detail, in the touch of the sun, in the song of the birds, in the beating of his own heart, and that, as he embraced this reality, his anxiety and doubts began to dissolve like mist at dawn. He walked to a small stream that meandered through the field, the crystal clear water reflecting the soft colors of the morning sky. He approached and touched the surface with his hands, feeling the coolness and constant movement of that small flow of life. There, in front of that never-stopping current, he understood that existence is like a river, constantly changing, but always flowing, always following its course, even if it sometimes seems unpredictable. He sat on the bank, closed his eyes, and allowed himself to listen to the sound of the water, the wind, the birds, a simple yet profound music that brought calm and clarity. Time was no longer an enemy or an enigma to be unraveled, but a silent companion, an eternal dance between past, present, and future, which invited him to live with fullness and gratitude. And so, with a light heart and a serene mind, he felt that his inner journey had just begun, open to infinite possibilities and the beauty contained in every moment lived. The sunlight was gaining strength, filling the sky with orange and pink tones, painting the clouds delicately. He felt the subtle energy of this awakening, a renewal that seemed to touch every fiber of his being. The morning air brought an invigorating freshness, and each breath seemed lighter, more full of life. As he watched the leaves dance as the wind gently swayed, he allowed himself to reflect on the power of impermanence. Everything in life is in constant movement. Everything changes. The pains that once seemed so great were now understood as part of this natural process of change. He thought of the rain that falls and washes the earth, bringing new life. So too, difficulties, doubts, dark moments, even though difficult, are like this rain, which prepares the ground for the blossoming of new possibilities. The man smiled at this idea, feeling a warmth in his soul. Life is a cycle, and he was exactly where he needed to be, present, open, and willing to go with the flow. He then followed the path that wound through the forest, where the tall, silent trunks formed a sacred corridor, a natural temple where time seemed to slow down even more. The ground, soft with fallen leaves, welcomed his steps, and the distant song of a bird echoed like an ancient song. He took a deep breath, taking in this atmosphere of peace and deep connection. Each step was an exercise in presence, an invitation to slow down the accelerated pace of the mind and merge with the rhythm of nature. At that moment, he realized that true wisdom did not lie in great answers, but in the ability to open oneself to questions. to allow oneself doubt and mystery, time, the universe, existence itself. Everything is a vast enigma, and that is what makes the journey so fascinating. He recalled that throughout his life, he sought certainties and security, but now he understood that beauty lies precisely in navigating the unknown, embracing uncertainty with courage and serenity. The man sat at the foot of an ancient tree, its roots deep in the fertile earth. He closed his eyes and felt the pulse of his heart, synchronized with the rhythm of life that surrounded him. It was as if, at that moment, he was a point of light in the vastness of the cosmos, a spark that, despite being small, was part of something grand and infinite. He realized that time was not an enemy to be fought, but a silent companion, a friend that guided him in the dance of existence. And so, with a heart full of gratitude, he prepared to continue his journey, knowing that each step, each moment, was a gift, an opportunity to be alive, aware, and at peace. He stood up slowly, feeling the gentle warmth of the sun touch his skin, awakening feelings of comfort and renewal. As he walked, he noticed how the forest seemed alive in a different way. Every detail, from the shine of the leaves to the murmur of the wind, carried a silent message, an invitation to contemplate. In his mind, questions about time intertwined with thoughts about the meaning of existence. Time was no longer just a measurement, but a vibrant field of experiences, emotions, and memories, all woven together into an infinite tapestry. He imagined that, just as trees grow slowly, stretching towards the sky, and yet remaining firm, human beings also need this balance to grow, dream, expand, but with deep roots that connect them to the essence of life. The man stood before a small lake, the surface of which was so smooth that it reflected the sky like a perfect mirror. He looked at his own reflection and smiled, not with vanity but with recognition. That reflection was proof of his existence, of his unique journey. With a calm gesture, he touched the water and small ripples formed, breaking the perfect image. It was there that he realized the impermanence of things. No matter how much we want to control or fix time, it follows its course, always fluid, always transforming. He sat by the lake, feeling the serenity of the moment. He closed his eyes and allowed his thoughts to empty, leaving space only for the silent presence of the now. The silence was deep, yet full of life, an invitation to dive into the depths of being and connect with what truly matters. As he breathed, he felt that time was no longer a burden, but a gift. Every second carried the possibility of rebirth, of learning, of love. He then remembered ancient stories of wise men who spoke about time as a sacred river, which never repeats itself, but is always there to guide us. At that moment, man understood that to live fully, it was necessary to accept the fleeting nature of time and surrender to the mystery of existence with humility and courage. And so, with a light heart and a clear mind, he stood up, ready to move forward, embracing the unknown with a serene smile and the certainty that, no matter what the future brought, he was exactly where he needed to be. He continued his walk along the path, which now opened out onto a vast, silent field where the grass danced softly in the touch of the wind. The sky above him was clear, a deep blue, dotted with clouds that seemed to sail slowly, lulled by time. As he walked, he felt his heart slow down, as if each beat was aligned with the slow rhythm of the universe. He thought about the vastness of the cosmos and how his own existence was a small part of this infinite whole. Yet, even a tiny spark was significant. He remembered the questions that had always haunted him. What is purpose? What does it mean to be? Why does time follow its relentless course? And then, slowly, he began to understand that perhaps these questions had no concrete answers, and that beauty lay precisely in that, the endless search. On the horizon, a solitary bird flew, tracing a calm and graceful trajectory across the sky. He followed it with his gaze, feeling inspired by that silent freedom, by the lightness of that flight without a fixed destination. Man's journey was no different. There was no rush, no need to get somewhere, just the path and the walking, each step imbued with meaning. He sat down on a smooth stone, its cool surface against his skin, and closed his eyes. He listened to the distant sound of a stream and the rustling of leaves. It was as if the world itself was breathing around him, inviting him to connect with his deepest essence. In the silence of that moment, he realized that time is neither an enemy nor a master. It is a companion, a gift that allows each moment to be lived with intensity and fullness. And then, a feeling of peace flooded his being. That man who had been talking to time now knew that he didn't need to control anything. He just needed to be present, open and attentive, allowing life to flow like a calm and constant river. He remained there for long minutes, absorbing the serenity, feeling the lightness of being, the subtle pulse of existence. When he finally stood up, the walk continued, not toward a destination, but toward the now, toward ongoing discovery, toward the experience of being alive. He continued on his way, feeling the solid ground beneath his feet, each step like an anchor that kept him present in the moment. The forest around him seemed to whisper ancient stories, forgotten tales that the wind brought to his attentive ears. The scent of damp earth mixed with the gentle perfume of wildflowers, creating an environment where his mind could finally rest. There, among ancient trees and dancing shadows, he found refuge from the turmoil of the outside world. He then thought about silence. Not empty silence, but full silence, the kind that allows us to hear our inner voice, our deepest thoughts, and subtlest emotions. He realized how, throughout life, we become accustomed to avoiding silence, filling it with noise, distractions, escapes. But true growth happens when we allow ourselves to sink into that calm space where everything can unfold with clarity. He recalled an old metaphor. Silence is like a crystal clear lake. When the water is calm, you can see the bottom, the rocks, the reflections. But if the water is agitated, everything becomes cloudy and confusing. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the pulse of life within him, the steady rhythm of his heart, the gentle breathing that kept him connected to the present. In that moment, he understood that the journey was not about getting somewhere, but about learning to appreciate every step, every breath, every moment that made up his existence. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the sky was beginning to take on golden hues, announcing the onset of dusk. The soft light filtered through the leaves, creating ephemeral designs on the ground, an art that lasted only a breath. He smiled at this fleeting beauty, knowing that just like that light, life was also made up of moments that arise and disappear, and that accepting this impermanence is the path to peace. He sat down again, this time facing the setting sun, letting the calm, warm energy invade his body, calming any remaining restlessness. There, in that silent connection with the universe, he felt whole, complete, part of a greater whole that transcends time and space. And so, as the sky slowly darkened, the man who had been talking to time stood up once more. With light steps, he walked away from the lake, taking with him the serenity of that moment. He knew that life is made up of precious moments, which unfold like the pages of an eternal book, and that each one of them deserves to be lived with attention and love. In the silence of the approaching night, he felt the quiet certainty that although time follows its relentless course, the true magic lies in how we choose to walk within it, with an open heart and a peaceful mind. He moved forward, ready to embrace the mystery of existence, knowing that in the end, we are all time travelers, learning with each step the art of simply being. May this story accompany you in your moments of rest, bringing peace, comfort, and inspiration for each new dawn.